Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Vicki Goodman, and I'm excited to welcome you to today's unique Open Mind program, a performance of the one-woman play, Does This Show Make Me Look Fat? It's co-written by Cathy Ladman and Laura Coyle and performed by Cathy Ladman, one of the country's top award-winning comedians and stand-up comics. The Los Angeles Times described Does This Show Make Me Look Fat as a self-probing, anxiety venting vehicle, which draws laughter from exposing personal neurosis. We are so fortunate to have Cathy here with us today to perform it as part of our Open Mind Community Lecture and Film series that brings together thought leaders in science and culture for meaningful discussions about mental health issues. The Open Mind is sponsored by the Friends of the Semel Institute for Neuroscience and Human Behavior at UCLA and the Resnick Neuropsychiatric Hospital Board of Advisors. Cathy Ladman is a native of Queens, New York, and now lives in Los Angeles. She has appeared in numerous films and television shows such as Modern Family, Curb Your Enthusiasm, How to Get Away with Murder, Scandal, Mad Men, just to name a few. She appears regularly on ABC's Politically Incorrect and Comedy Central's Dr. Katz Professional Therapist. Her writing credits include Caroline in the City, Roseanne, an episode of King of Queens, and together with HBO, she developed her solo show Scaredy Pants and took it to the Aspen Comedy Festival. Cathy also recently did a TED Med talk, which excerpted from the show we are going to see today. After the performance, Cathy will be joined in conversation by Dr. Danielle Keenan-Miller, Adjunct Associate Professor of Psychology at UCLA and the Director of the UCLA Psychology Clinic. Dr. Keenan-Miller is a psychological scientist, teacher, therapist, and co-author of the Binge Eating Prevention Workbook. She also trains graduate students in evidence-based psychotherapy. A huge thank you to both Cathy and Danielle for taking the time from their busy schedules to join us for today's Open Mind program that will touch on issues such as body image, eating disorders, and attaining perfection. Following the discussion, we have reserved time for your questions, which we ask that you please type into the Q&A located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Today's program, which will run for 1 hour, is also being taped and will be available for viewing tomorrow on our YouTube channel, sorry for the dog, that can be found on our website, friendsofthesemelinstitute.org. There you will also find a library of videos from past Open Mind programs, a calendar of upcoming events, oh my goodness, and information about our Friends Scholar program that supports the research of early career neuroscientists at UCLA. This is what happens when you're Zooming from your home office. And now let's get started. Please join me in giving a warm Zoom welcome to award-winning comedian, writer, and stand-up comic, Cathy Ladman. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vicki and Dog. Great to have everyone here today. I'm going to be presenting an excerpt of my show, and let me tell you a little bit about why I chose to do this show. I'm a stand-up comic. I've been a stand-up comic for 40 years, and about 20 years or so into my career, I wanted to talk about my eating disorder. I became anorexic when I was about 18. And I tried to do this in comedy clubs, but it just wasn't the right venue for it. And I decided that I'd have to write something different and bring it to another venue. And along my journey, I ran into a colleague and friend, Laura Coyle, with whom I had acted in a play years ago. And she had done her own solo show, and she said that she would love to do this with me. So this is basically what you're going to see here today is Laura's and my project. And that's about it. And now I'm just going to start. Oh, I want to tell you one more thing. I'm sorry. One more thing. And I'm starting in the middle of the show. And So before this, I had already lost a tremendous amount of weight, and I'm really skinny at this point. In college, I had 3 majors: English education, media and communications, and starvation. And I got A's in all of them. After I graduated, I got a job at an ad agency in Manhattan. I was living back home in what I've referred to as that house, my parents' house, depressed and just plain lost. The only thing that was working for me was that I weighed what I did when I was 11. I hated my job, but I had this terrific boss. Her name was Lori. She was single, middle-aged, a real career woman, a native New Yorker who did not mess around. One day, Cathy, come here. I want to talk to you. She pulled me aside and handed me a piece of paper with a name and number on it. Call this number and go see this doctor. You don't look good. You're skin and bones. Oh, Lori, come on. Everyone wants to look like this. No, Cathy. No one wants to look like this. Really? Okay. I said okay, but I didn't mean it. Come on, I mean, who doesn't want to look like Twiggy on a hunger strike? But I called anyway because you did what Lori said to do. It took everything I had to make that phone call because I knew I was going to have to tell the truth, which I did. And of course, they told me I needed to come right in. The next day, and I remember it so well, it was one of those gorgeous early summer days in Manhattan. I decided to walk to the doctor's office to burn calories like I always did. People were out enjoying lunch at charming little cafes. I was frantically chewing my favorite lunch, Trident Blue sugarless gum, as I race walked uptown. As soon as Dr. Solomon saw me, he asked me to get on the scale. 84 and a half. Oh, that's not good, is it? Well, it's obvious that you're anorexic. You're severely underweight. You don't menstruate. You chew gum instead of eating. If you lose any more weight, you'll have to be admitted. But for now, I want you to go to Roosevelt Hospital every day and weigh in. Well, what if I just stay at this weight? Will I have to be admitted? Cathy, this is serious. You could die from this. Oh, okay. Whatever you say. I had to play the game. So I start weighing in every morning at Roosevelt. Pretty soon it became routine and familiar. Morning, I'm going into room 5. There was an old-timey scale in there, the one with the cast iron waist that you slide along the bar. I lock the door and I undress completely. Underwear, socks, necklace, earrings, every single thing that I was not born with comes off. I get on the scale. The large weight is on 100. 100? Jesus, who the hell was in here? I move the large weight down to the 50-pound mark. Now the smaller weight, 70, 75, 80, 81, 2, 3, 4, and a half. Yes, I did it. I am such a winner. 84 and a half. I can control my weight within a half a pound. Who else can do that? A half a pound. I mean, that's how you weigh potato salad. I'm so good at this. Next morning, same thing. Going into 5 again. It's my lucky scale. I undress, jump on the scale. 65, 75, 80, 81, 2, 3, 4. Fuck. 85? 85 pounds? Is this room 5? Is this the right scale? All I had to do was stay at 84 and a half, and I can't even do that. What a loser. I'm going to get to 84 and a half again if it kills me. Next morning, going into 5. No, wait, I'm going to try room 4. Oh, Cathy, the doctor will be in to see you today, so hang around. I lock the door, strip down to nothing, blow my nose, clean my ears, spit out my gum, and hop on the scale. 65, 75, 80, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a half. Yes, what a winner, 84 and a half. Woohoo! I finished getting dressed. There's a knock on the door. Come in. Hi, Cathy, how are you? Feeling great, Doc. So what did you weigh today? 84 and a half. Cathy, I don't think you understand the seriousness of your situation. The idea is to gain weight, not stay at 84.5 pounds. You're morbidly thin. Your body is shutting down. Soon it will consume your muscle tissue. If you don't gain weight, we're admitting you. Do you understand? Yes. I said yes because I did understand, but I was petrified to gain weight because that would mean I had lost control. This was back in 1979 when anorexia wasn't on anyone's radar. But by 1983, after Karen Carpenter died, it was on everyone's radar. That meant I would have 4 more years to repeat my favorite mantra. I am going to be the skinniest person alive. No one is going to beat me at the diet game. No one. Here's what I ate. For breakfast, I had a dry English muffin. For lunch, an apple and a tab. 2 hours later, I had a headache. For dinner, I had a piece of chicken or a tiny salad, a paper-thin slice of cheese, an almond. The things I did to keep from gaining weight, things even most top models couldn't have thought up. My most genius method is something I call swallowing up. And because it's so disgusting, I thought it best to present it in a song. Hit it, Hal. Well, I'd like to take a little bite of my food. Then I take that bite and just like you, I chew. And just like you, I swallow it down. But unlike you, I turn it around. Yes, I follow it up with swallowing up and I do it all again. It was better than a diet. You probably shouldn't try it, but it worked for me. A handy way to take one bite and turn it into 3. I realize this might sound sick, but I like to think it's my greatest trick. Yes, I follow it up with swallowing up and I do it all again. Well, it's a brand new take on a well-known theme, a bona fide anorexic stream. I do anything not to be fat, swallowing up. Can you imagine that? Oh yeah, swallowing up. It worked best with things like bread and pizza. Like I would take a bite of pizza, chew it, swallow it, and then right away bring it back up and chew it again. I was like a mama bird. I know, it's so disgusting, but I have to say it out loud. I can't keep secrets. My secrets are what kept me sick. So like the song says, I would take that bite and turn it into 3. I needed to be the best anorexic out there. One weekend, my sister Leslie invited me over for dinner. We were having pizza. Perfect. I'm sitting there across from her, and of course I have to swallow up, but I can't let her see me. She's looking down. Here's my chance. And right in the middle, you guessed it, swallow uptus interruptus. Cathy, what are you doing with your neck? What do you mean? This. Oh, well, I was just, chewing and then swallowing and then, like bringing it back up so I can re-chew and re-swallow it, like some people do. What people? I've never heard of that. Gross. And then she just changed the subject. What a lucky break. She's she's letting it go. Wait a second. She's letting it go? How dare she let it go? What the hell's the matter with her? Clearly, I need help. Can't she see that? I guess on some level, I wanted to get caught. Maybe. I don't know. But neither one of us wanted to deal with it yet. That week, I started a new job at a small cosmetics company, very small. There were 2 of us. One day, my boss Phyllis and I made a quick stop at my place so I could change. I start pulling off my shirt and I hear, oh my God, Cathy, you're back. What? What's on it? It looks like you're from Auschwitz or something. Oh no, really? Meanwhile, I'm thinking, a concentration camp? wow, I'm doing better than I thought. Even being compared to a concentration camp victim couldn't convince me that I was thin enough. But after a few more, oh my God, reactions, I gave in and called this place Dr. Solomon had recommended, the Ackerman Institute for Family Therapy. The idea was my whole family would go. Now, my dad was a hard no, being that he wasn't a talk about your feelings kind of guy. His cure for anorexia was to open the refrigerator and take a piece of rye bread. My sister Leslie was about to have a baby, so she couldn't go. My other sister Joanne and I weren't speaking, so she wouldn't go. But my mom, she was right there for me, and I will always be grateful for that. In the first session, our therapist Peggy asked my mom what kind of a kid I was. Oh, she wasn't much trouble at all. She was very stubborn. She had to have her own way. She would not adopt our standards on religion particularly. Oh, I see, Mom. Not much trouble at all. Well, you weren't. So why are you saying only negative things about me? Oh, Cathy. But thank God Peggy was also right there for me and wouldn't let my mother get away with her usual bait and switch. Eventually, my whole family joined in the festivities. We laughed, we cried, we blamed and shamed until we were so exhausted, we all went out for pizza. And I would starve myself all day so that I could have that one slice of cheesy, crusty, delicious goddamn pizza. To be fair, a lot of the time we had fun in therapy. We were all together doing all the mishigas we did so well, but this time with a referee. Peggy created a safe space that allowed even my dad to surprise everyone. He became so available and so honest. Even I started to like him. I began to put on weight very slowly. I was growing up and out of that house and out of those patterns that had been keeping me stuck for so long. But where was I actually going to go? Then I got a great idea. As much as I loved my parents, being so close made it too easy to slip back into those old patterns. So I was going to get as far away as I could and finally give myself a real chance at getting better. California, here I come. Cathy, what are you doing in there? Hey, Mom, Dad, I've got this great idea. I'm moving out to LA. Don't say LA, say Los Angeles. How are we supposed to know what you're talking about if you say LA? Why are you moving all the way out there? I'm going to be a stand-up comic. I thought you wanted to be a teacher. No, Mom, you wanted me to be a teacher. Oh, well, same thing. And how are you going to make money? I'll figure it out. First, I got to get out there, so I'm driving cross country. What makes you think you can drive cross country by yourself? That's arrogant. I'll find someone. I'll take out an ad. It'll be an adventure. You're advertising for someone to drive out with you? A murderer. You're not driving out with some stranger. I'm driving with you. Next thing I knew, my dad was sitting shotgun and we were heading west on the 70 in my perfectly packed 1974 Volvo station wagon. Okay, Dad, now behave yourself or I'm going to turn this car right around. You're funny. You know, you got that from me. Wow, my dad thinks I'm funny. What do you know? This was the first adult thing we ever did together. We shared the driving, 3 hours on, 3 hours off. I can't remember all the games we played, but I do remember that we did at least 20 crossword puzzles. Okay, Dad, 5-letter word for a mustard color. Yellow. I said 5 letters, not 6. So write small. All of a sudden I look over and there's this car and this woman and she's waving her arms at us like she's being attacked by murder hornets. So I wave back. Boy, these people out here are really friendly. But she won't stop waving. Then her wave morphs into a kind of panicky pointing at our car, pointing behind us, pointing at the car, pointing behind us. Then she starts mouthing something. What? What are you saying? Soon? Soon-a? What's a soon-a? Suit. Oh, suit. Suitcase. Suitcase, right. She's saying suitcase. Suitcase. Suitcase? What about the suitcase? I open the window and reach up to where my suitcase used to be. Oh my God, my suitcase. dryer. My dad races to the next exit. We pull over and this cop car pulls up right behind us. Oh, great. My blow dryer is gone and now we're going to get a ticket. The cop gets out of his car and he's carrying my suitcase with my blow dryer. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you, officer. I'm so grateful. You don't know what this means to me. My hair is everything. Yes, ma'am. Drive safely now. We get back in the car and my dad looks at me and says, can you believe it? Isn't that something? See how things work out? We got back on the highway and I'm thinking, yeah, my dad could be a real asshole sometimes, but he could also be a really great guy, like a pal. We never spoke about it, but I'm pretty sure he felt the same way. What a nice surprise. When we finally got to LA and I saw the Hollywood sign in the distance, I knew we weren't in Kansas anymore. And as scary as it was, I was going to have to say goodbye to my dad and start my new life. Are you sure you don't want me to take you to the airport, Dad? Nah, I don't like those scenes. The shuttle's fine. I dropped him off and I managed to keep it together because, you know, he doesn't like those kind of scenes. But as I drove away, I burst into tears because, well, I do like those kind of scenes. In the whopping 4 whole months that I lasted in LA, here's what happened. I arrived a bright, young, fresh talent with visions of sugar plums dancing in my head and left a shriveled up raisin from the blazing LA sun, a soul-sucking job as a substitute teacher in a yeshiva, and a car accident that would have killed me if I hadn't been in my beloved Volvo. I had the car repaired, sold it, and my blow dryer and I got on the next flight out of there, back to New York, and back to that house. One night, I was indulging in a dry piece of Melba toast when my mom came to my room. She opened the door and then knocked. That's not how you knock, Mom. That's very fresh. Don't be fresh. Mom, I can't be fresh. I'm not 14. Well, as long as you're under my roof, you'll always be 14. Oh God, just shoot me now. I don't want to hear that kind of talk. What's going on with you, Cathy? Well, Mom, to be honest, I'm depressed. Oh, I don't like to hear that at all. That doesn't make me feel good. You have to take better care of yourself. I am taking care of myself. I mean, are you doing everything you can to feel better? Yes, Mom, I'm doing everything I can to feel better. Are you doing your best? Yes, Mom, I'm doing my best. Well, just do your very best and then do some more. What? What? How can I do my best and then do some more? My best is my best. There's nothing better than best. That's how it goes. Good, better, best. That's the hierarchy. Is there some new kind of level that I haven't heard of, Mom? I mean, maybe it goes good, better, best, bestester, boing. Very fresh. Suddenly the door swings open, followed by another knock. It's my dad. What's going on in here? Why are all these lights on? I'm trying to cheer Cathy up. Help me. Why are you so down? Lighten up. Things aren't that bad. Yes, they are. I'm not doing what I want to do. I want to be a comedian. You still with that? Why don't you just be a teacher? Just? What do you mean just? Teaching is a wonderful profession. Oh, May, you'll make an argument out of anything. You know what I mean. No, what do you mean? I just want Cathy to be happy. If you really wanted me to be happy, you'd want me to go after my dream. But it's such a hard career. Yeah, it's a crapshoot. I'm not saying that you're not funny. I'm just saying maybe you should do something more practical. Well, finally we agree on something, Leo. Oh, Christ. I was so mad at myself. Why couldn't I just do it? Why couldn't I just get on stage and be a comedian? Am I going to play it safe? Am I going to continue to starve myself from everything? That was it. The next day, I got up and I did what I hadn't been willing to do, risk bombing. I found a great stand-up comedy class and I wrote my first 5 minutes. A month later, my teacher said, "You're ready, kid. Go sign up at Good Times Comedy Club." I'll never forget that day. Sunday, June 28th, 1981. As soon as I walked into the club, I had already won. I was doing it. It was as close to a baptism as this Jewish girl was ever going to get. That night, I had a great set. The next night, I went back and I had a horrible set. And I didn't care because I was doing what I came to this planet to do. But I wasn't going to be able to do it for long if I continued to weigh in at a hefty 92.5 pounds. So I started seeing Peggy again, this time on my own. I wanted to get better. But it was hard. Anorexia doesn't like to let go once it's got its teeth in you. I really worked at it. And I ate a little more and I gained a little weight, just enough for me to feel like I could take another stab at LA. They say you're a totally different person in 7 years, and I was. Okay, it was 6 years and 9 months, but I was changing. It was the mid-'80s and stand-up comedy was booming. I had shows almost every night at the Comedy Store, the Improv, anywhere that had a stage and a mic. I was starting to feel successful as a comic. But as an anorexic, I still had a long way to go. Thoughts of food consumed me. I would count calories as often as I would breathe, and I weighed myself relentlessly. It was exhausting. I was stuck again. Anorexia was the thing between me and my destiny. Okay, wow, that sounds very dramatic. But it was dramatic. Anorexia could have actually literally killed me. I had to get more help. So I made a desperate call to Peggy in New York and asked her if she knew anyone who could help me in LA. Her name was Terry. She was the right person at the right time. I trusted her, and I got to the point where I was willing to really admit that I was anorexic and powerless over my relationship with food. That's when she told me about this thing called Overeaters Anonymous. I'd only ever heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. Who knew you could plug the 12 steps into any compulsion? So I'm having a session with Terry, and she tells me about a woman who goes to an OA meeting that focuses on anorexia and bulimia. That piques my interest. So of course I call this woman, and she begins telling me all these stories, anonymously, of course. Cathy, there's this one woman who chews her food, swallows it, and then brings it up and chews it again over and over. That's pretty wild, huh? Oh, wow, yeah, that's wild. And I'm thinking, my people, my chosen people. Sorry, Jews. I had to get to this meeting. I was right. These were my people. The stories they shared, although not exactly mine, were close enough for me to know that I wasn't alone, that I could get through this for one day and start to learn how to take care of myself. They always say at the end of the meeting, keep coming back. So I did. For 35 years and counting, I've been abstinent. No more chewing my own cud, as appetizing as that sounds. As soon as I started going to meetings, things started going even better. I was getting acting gigs and comedy specials, and I did the Tonight Show a bunch of times. I opened for big acts like the Pointer Sisters and Jay Leno. Look at me. I'm living my best life. I'm such a winner. So how come I'm still not perfect? Because nothing's perfect. And I now see that that's perfect because it's not perfect, because nothing is, which is great, right? And after years of therapy in OA, I'm also not cured. Here's how not cured I am. A couple of years ago, I was talking to a colleague, and somehow the subject came up that I was anorexic. And he said, wow, I never would have guessed that. You don't look anorexic, you look completely normal. Really? Huh. I was this close to saying, fuck you, asshole. You don't look anorexic is the last thing you say to an anorexic. We want to look anorexic. That's the whole point. Even when we know that we're morbidly thin, that's the goal. You know, it will always be slightly disappointing for me that people don't gasp anymore when they see me. I know it sounds crazy, but I miss that. When I look in the mirror now, I still see myself as fat sometimes. Okay, always. I still count calories when I'm not supposed to, a lot. And I still want to undereat, and I mostly don't. That's the difference. I mostly don't. Anorexia is very complicated. Is it nature? Is it nurture? It's actually both. I want to give you some scientific context, but it's kind of dry. So let me put it this way. It's like making a sourdough starter. It has to have a very particular environment in order to flourish. Well, so does anorexia. And I had the perfect recipe. Here's what you need. Number one, you need the predisposition. You have to start with the DNA. Anorexia lives on a chromosome. This would be like the air in the room when you're making your sourdough starter. So DNA, check. Number two, overbearing, controlling parents with high expectations. Check. That would be the flour in the starter. And number three, low self-esteem and a lifelong quest for perfection. That's the water. Check. Mix it all together, and what do you get? Well, yes, you do get a loaf of sourdough, but you also get a stand-up comic with an overwhelming compulsion to starve herself to death. Now that's comedy. You know, I realized something recently. It may seem obvious, but it wasn't to me. My body was never meant to look like what I have been trying to force it to look like for all these years. I'm built the way I'm built, and no amount of skinny was ever going to get me the love and admiration I thought I saw in the pages of 17 magazine. I deserve love and admiration for who I am, not how I look, and I just plain deserve to exist. Taking up space is my birthright. And if I can spare one person from wasting his or her life thinking that losing 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 50 pounds is going to get them that love and admiration, then my standing up here, not doing stand-up was worth it. You deserve to exist. So it was never about 17 magazine or Twiggy or even my overbearing parents. It was and is about my relationship to myself, my acceptance of myself. All these years trying to make myself into someone else when I was just meant to be Cathy, not with the tightest tummy or the most toned thighs, just Cathy. Several years ago, I got a chance to combine this comedy that I love so much with my road to recovery. I was asked to do a set on the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, and I decided to use it as an opportunity to out myself, the ultimate challenge, making anorexia funny. I would stand up in front of a national audience and finally have a chance to be all of my perfectly imperfect self. Hi, I'm Cathy and I'm an anorexic. I always like to open with a big laugh. Yeah, it's a little scary being on national TV and saying that I'm anorexic because the camera adds 10 pounds. I've been anorexic for the past 39 years. Thank you. As a matter of fact, last year I was turned down for health insurance because I have a history of anorexia. Well, that's what they said. I know why they really turned me down. It's because I'm fat and I'm old. I'm fat and I'm old. It's a nice combo. I hate getting old. I'm very unique that way. I do hate it. You know, I got up one morning and I walked into the bathroom and I looked into the mirror and I saw something on my neck. So I leaned in a little more closely to see what it was. And it was my neck. My neck was hanging from my neck. How depressing is that? But I'm not getting plastic surgery. No, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. The most I'm willing to do is to hold my upper arm flaps back with chip clips because I don't want to hurt anyone when I'm waving goodbye. I'm getting so tired of all the judgment. You know, I'm getting so tired of hearing people say things like, oh, have you seen so-and-so lately? She looks so old. Yeah, you know why she looks old? She's old. That's what happens when you've been alive. You get old. It's not a big secret. It just amazes me the lengths that people will go to look like what they don't look like. Like I got an email recently. It was an ad for permanent makeup. Permanent makeup. I mean, how lazy do you have to be? What is it? One day you're putting on your makeup and you're like, I can't. I just can't do it anymore. Where's that 800 number? Yeah, I need the permanent makeup. Sure, I'll sign the waiver. I don't care if I end up looking like Krusty the Clown. I just can't do this one more day. Perfection is such a wild goose chase, you know? I mean, look at me. I want to be thin, but I love to eat, and then I hate having eaten. It's crazy. You know what I was thinking? What if I were to end up on death row? I know, I don't know how yet, but just go with me on this, okay? You know what would be the scariest part about being on death row for me? Choosing a last meal. Yeah, because I know me. I'd have an hour to live and I'd still be counting calories. Wouldn't it be great though if I could just go for it? You know, if I could just order everything that I'd ever wanted, but I'd been too afraid to eat, you know, like a large order of French fries and a whole pizza, a gallon of ice cream and cheesecake. Oh, I love cheesecake and mac and cheese, mac and cheesecake. You ever hear of that deep fried butter? I'm getting one of those too. All of it, everything, all at once. And then they'd bring me the tray and I'd look at it and I'd think, oh my God, I can't eat that. What are you trying to do? Kill me? Thank you very much. Good night. And now I would like to bring on Dr. Danielle Keenan-Miller.
Hi, Cathy. First, let me start
Hi.
by saying congratulations and thank you. Thank you for sharing this piece with us tonight. And thank you for your willingness to share this piece with the world and your willingness to be vulnerable and talk so openly. It really is a big risk. I wonder what it feels like when you share it, when it's out in the world like this.
What does it feel like? It's something I'm getting used to. It feels good. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do this was because I wanted to do something that was meaningful and I wanted to do something that could help other people. I mean, not that making people laugh is not a noble cause. I think it is. I think laughter is a great thing, but I wanted to do something a little bit more substantial, a little deeper, a little more intimate.
Yeah, that really resonates through the work, and I think it's brave, and I think stories like this reach a different kind of audience than academic articles or psychologists talking to community members. It's really a way for people to see themselves, their own stories reflected in someone else's word, and sort of like you had with hearing the stories about the people from Overeaters Anonymous to say like, oh, something in that resonates with me, and it helps you feel a little bit closer to understanding yourself.
Definitely. It was very important for me initially. And I mean, now I can go to any kind of a 12-step meeting if I'm out of town or something, but it was very important for me initially to go to meetings where there was an emphasis on anorexia and bulimia. It was very important for me to tangibly hear things that were very close to my experience. Yeah. Now I can extrapolate things a little bit more easily now that I have experience in recovery.
And speaking of your recovery, one of the points you make so eloquently in your work is that you are recovering but not recovered, and that those echoes of those old ways of thinking and old ways of behaving are still with you. And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about how you personally create that space where you can notice a desire to undereat, but still manage to nourish yourself. Like how do you do that in yourself?
You know, I have to separate the emotion from the intellect. I know I have to eat to nourish myself. I know I have to eat to not just survive, but to thrive. So I make it a point of eating. My abstinence is basically 3 meals a day and a snack or 2. And not saying that sometimes I'll miss a meal, but very rarely. I really go out of my way to eat my meals because I know how seductive it is. Yeah. It's really seductive. Yeah. Feeling thin, which I don't, which I probably never did, is momentarily a very wonderful feeling for me. And I don't want to get tantalized by that. It's just too dangerous. It's too dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And, the 3 meals and 1 or 2 snacks plan is sort of the foundation of treatment for almost every eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, really making eating a pattern, a behavior rather than a choice is really an essential piece of helping people to heal, even if you need to sort of put the cart before the horse a little bit.
Right. I mean, I feel like in some ways, I don't have the luxury that normal people have of eating when, I mean, I don't force myself to eat if I'm really not hungry at all. But I make sure that I make sure that I eat my food. It's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah.
And you know, a normal person might say, you know, I don't feel like eating. I don't feel like having lunch. I'll just wait until dinner. That's dangerous territory for me. And I realize it while it's happening.
Yeah, it is. It's risky. And, you know, for so many people, you know, we often say that the risks, like your genes sort of set the stage as you, for the sourdough, as you say in your piece, but it's, you know, the environmental trigger that really causes someone to begin in an eating disorder can be lots of different kinds of things. For some people, it's when they lose weight by accident, like if they have an illness where they really lose a lot of weight for medical reasons, that can be a trigger because that feeling of thinness becomes seductive or meaningful. And for you, this is presented a little bit before where you started your piece today, but it's really a diet. And also in your TED Med talk, you talk about diets as sort of a Russian roulette for that reason.
Yes.
And I think that's so important because diets in our diet heavy culture are sort of treated as always a good thing. And there's a lot of evidence that that's not true, and that most people who diet actually end up weighing more than they would have if they didn't go on the diet in the first place. But even if you take weight out of the equation, a lot of people overlook the very real risks of tipping into an eating disorder when they start to diet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important for eating, you know, I mean, I'm happy for friends who are losing weight on diets who really want to lose weight, but I think it's very important that the way you eat become like a lifestyle, and it's not all of a sudden you're eating one way and then I can go off my diet now. And if you go off your diet, your body's going to react differently. You know, it's most likely going to gain the weight back.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the diet itself could be such a risk factor for tipping into an eating disorder of various kinds. We also know that dieting can set people up for binge eating. It can set up bulimia. So it's really a risky time. And I'm so glad that your piece really highlights that, and your TED Med talk does too. And for those in the audience who haven't seen your TED Med talk, I would highly recommend it. Another sort of theme in your work is the role of control and perfectionism as one of the key drivers for your anorexia. And I wonder what role those have had in your recovery, how you've worked towards changing your relationship with perfectionism.
Well, you know, I remember a therapist of mine was encouraging me to be a little bit late to my appointments sometimes. You know, for somebody like me, that's recovery.
Yeah.
Doing things imperfectly is a good thing. And I had an acting teacher once who said, we love the mistakes. We wait for the mistakes because that's when great things happen. But to somebody who's anorexic, who aims for perfectionism, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I love that idea of sort of intentional exposure to imperfection, particularly because we're humans, we're messy, we are imperfect beings. And when you practice it intentionally, you have a better capacity to absorb it when it happens unintentionally.
And that's part of one's humanity.
Yeah.
And it really makes us connect to one another, our humanness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that really shines through.
Could I ask you a question?
Sure. Yeah.
I've heard that treating people with anorexia is very difficult. Can you speak on that for a bit?
Yeah. I would say there are some things that are uniquely challenging about working with anorexia, even in comparison to other kinds of eating disorders. And one of them is that, as you highlight in your piece, the stakes are really high. This is a life-threatening illness, and people die of it with regularity. And so I think anytime as a provider, we're working in a high-risk situation where we're really invested in keeping our patient alive, it feels more challenging. But also something that's really different about anorexia as opposed to binge eating or bulimia is that often the person experiencing it isn't ready to let it go. That even if there's parts of it that they know are destroying their lives or ruining their health, even, that the desire to be thin is so much a part of how they experience themselves in the world, that it takes some time in therapy usually for them to be willing to make a shift. As opposed to, say, if someone is binge eating or has bulimia, often they come in saying, I really want that thing to stop. Often the starting place in anorexia is, I'm not sure I'm willing to put on weight or do something differently than I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
And I've also noticed with me, I mean, I exercise, but I've noticed that sometimes with exercise, I can become compulsive.
Mhm.
And I will challenge myself to do a little bit less
Mhm.
and see that I'm not going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And, I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but the feelings don't really change altogether that much.
Mhm.
It's just the recovery gets you through it.
Yeah.
It's like the ocean is gonna toss and turn, but if you have a good vessel, you can get by on it.
Yeah. And you can still have a life that's rich and healthy and successful. And in many ways, you can have more of that than you could have holding on to your illness. But it doesn't mean that those thoughts and feelings are ever totally gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there anything else I wanted to ask you? Oh God. I can't remember.
I have some more questions for you, but I'm wondering if Vicki wants to jump in.
Okay. All right.
First of all, before I get to the questions, and we do have some questions, I want to thank you both. This was a fascinating discussion. And Cathy, I'm going to just echo what Dory said here. You were wonderful. Thank you for sharing this very personal, poignant story with all of us. And you are doing a great deal to help others by sharing this.
I hope so.
Oh, absolutely. So thank you. Thank you so much. And Danielle, thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise. And I'm going to move right on to these questions. Marvin says, bravo. So great. Thank you. How is the pattern of supposed to be perfect working out for you now?
How is say that again? How is the pattern of supposed to be perfect?
Pattern of supposed to be perfect working out.
I'm able to laugh at myself more now. If I find myself doing that, I go, oh, all right, here I go again. And I'll make a joke out of it. And I know I'm not, I just know on an intellectual level, I know I'm not perfect and I'm never going to be perfect. It's just not going to happen. So, that realization frees me up. And it also makes it more possible for me to discover things by mistake. And that's, like I said before, that's when you really discover great stuff in life. In adventuring, going on a vacation, writing something, whatever you come across in life, if you can just take it at face value, it can be something excellent. It doesn't have to be perfect. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much. We have somebody here, Danielle, who is a parent of a child in recovery from anorexia. She is asking about your message about overbearing parents being part of the equation. And she mentions something called 9 Truths About Eating Disorders. And Danielle or Cathy or both, if you could comment on this.
I know that slide that she is talking about, the 9 truths. It's, I think for a long time, there was a sense in the eating disorders field that this was something sort of caused by parents, and more modern and sophisticated research methods have really called into question the idea that that's necessarily a piece of what leads to eating disorders. There's a lot of pathways into eating disorders. And for some people, their family environment is a piece of that. But for others, it's not. For others, it comes from a different mix, a different recipe, perhaps, than the one that Cathy was talking about. That said, even though parents aren't always one of the risk factors for the development of eating disorders, I will say they are a really important ally in treatment. Especially for youth. Family-based treatment is the #1 treatment for anorexia. Parents hold so much of the power and so many of the levers of the home environment of kids that when we can bring parents on board, that is the best chance we have for kids and youth to really fully recover. And we'll often say to parents, when we're doing family-based treatment for anorexia, it doesn't exactly matter where this came from. We think of it like, sometimes we talk about it like a spider on top of your child, or, a different kind of serious medical illness they could have. We wouldn't be sitting around talking about why does your child have this medical problem, as much as we would be saying, what do we do? How do we get your child healthy and well again? So that's sort of how I think about it. That, for some people, their families are a really important part of that puzzle, and for others, maybe little or no influence at all.
I just want to add something. When I was in family therapy, this was 1978, so it was a long time ago. There's been, I know a lot has been discovered about the disease, but my parents' marriage played a big part in my illness, and excuse me. It was their belief that I was trying to take the focus off, get their focus off of each other and their fighting, and put it on to me. That was one of their theories. So that's where that came in for me. And I hope Danielle, the other Danielle, not you, Danielle Keenan-Miller, but I hope that you don't feel like I was blaming you. But I can't help it. That's my experience. That's all I can do is share my experience.
Thank you, Cathy. A question here regarding how do you restart when you feel like you're slipping down the hole and into some old habits? Can you comment on that? What are your tips there?
One of the great things for me is I've been in Overeaters Anonymous for 35 years, and I have people I can call. I have meetings to go to. I know the signs. It's almost like I can look at myself objectively and say, okay, I'm running into some trouble here. Let me call somebody and get some feedback. Let me go to a meeting and share about it. And it always works. It always works. Sometimes it takes longer than other times, but it always works. It always brings me back because I have so many allies now. I'm not in this by myself anymore. And that's a huge part of my recovery.
Having a support network.
That's very, very important.
Yeah. Danielle, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'd say, knowing that Cathy is talking about is really the essential moment of seeing like this is happening again. And right now, in this moment that I have that awareness, I have a choice about whether to continue down that path or to get back on a path towards health. Like every moment is a new choice. It's really not down a hole, because a hole sort of suggests you have to claw your way back up. It's really at every moment you get to choose what direction you're walking in. And sometimes we want change to be, this very neat, orderly line towards improvement. And sometimes it's squiggly, but at every point along the path, there's a choice to say, I know what got me well, whether that's meetings or therapy or support or my CBT app or whatever it is that helped you start to get well in the first place. Every moment is a choice to recommit to yourself and say, I'm going to do the things that I know help me get better right now, no matter what happened an hour ago or a day ago. And also to forgive yourself for lapses or challenges as part of the healing process.
Thank you. Question here from Dana. What do we know about the percent of women and girls who have an eating disorder, or Dana says disordered eating? Danielle?
Well, once you add in disordered eating, the percentage is really quite high. Anorexia and bulimia are relatively rare, about 1%, 2%, depending on the age range that we're looking at in particular groups. Binge eating disorder is far more common, about 3.5% of people meet full criteria. But once you start to broaden it out to the spectrum, it's really astounding how many, in particular women, but also men, meet criteria for disordered eating and or very impairing negative body image. That is unfortunately more of a rule than an exception in our society. And I think because of that, it's really going to take society level changes for there to be real differences in people's risk and path to wellness.
Thank you. Speaking of that, what about teens and social media and seeing these perfect bodies that have most likely been manipulated with Photoshop or some kind of an app? And you have 13, 14, 15-year-old girls looking, and then you can't measure up to something that's been Photoshopped and perfect. And can you comment a little bit about that and social media and what it is doing for young girls and body image?
Yeah. Certainly the research suggests that exposure to very thin media, thin promoting media, has a negative consequence for not just teens, but also adult women's body image, and actually leads to behaviors like overeating. We know if we show people that in the lab and we leave around bowls of M&Ms, they'll eat more than if they didn't see thin promoting media. So I think it's really a challenge for parents to help their youth understand the role of Photoshop and things like that, help them develop some dissonance. There are some really good preventative workshops that young people can go to. They're actually through sororities, many of them, that help young adults identify ways that they are being pressured by media into beliefs about their body that aren't helpful. So if parents can start to have those conversations with their children and adolescents, that's really useful. And also, I think we all need to be mindful about the impact of the media we're choosing to expose ourselves to, and clicking unfollow on things that don't make us feel good and supported. That's a choice that all of us have. And I encourage parents to actively talk with their children about that.
Thank you. Cathy, did you want to add anything to that about the role?
Well, even though I'm old and I didn't grow up with social media, no. I did grow up with magazines.
About the neck.
Right. I did grow up with magazines and TV and movies, and it's an impossible. I think society does a lot to encourage eating disorders, a lot, and particularly, I mean, the business that I'm in is exponential. So I have to, I mean, even doing something like having gray hair is against the grain in my business. And, you know, I finally, one day I just said, whatever, I just want to have gray hair, and that's that. And it takes a lot to stand up against what they're giving us. And it's gargantuan what we're quote being fed by the media as far as being thin.
Thank you for that comment. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Mm.
There are many more questions here, but we just don't have time to get to them. I want to thank you both. This was really a very informative, inspiring, thought-provoking program. And we are very grateful to you for being here tonight and sharing your thoughts, your inner personal moments of struggle. Thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. We hope to see you back. Our next Open Mind is on October 5th. We're going to welcome the author Miriam Feldman, who will talk about her book, He Came In With It, which is a story of what happens to a family when their teenage son is diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Mm.
And the faculty discussant will be Dr. Yvonne Yang, who's the director of the psychosis clinic at UCLA. And I'm very proud to say she's a past recipient of the Chancellor Block Friends of Semel Scholar Award. So thank you again. Everybody stay safe, stay well. And humor is a great thing. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to be here.
Good night, everyone.